What's up, everybody? I am Huck the Crab. Welcome to my first. Well, it's not my first YouTube video. Welcome to my first YouTube Redstone Create modded tutorial, whatever you want to call it. We are flying into the factory on a beautiful morning in Bugtown. You can see the factory's opening up for the morning quite nicely. This is my survival server I play on with some friends. BigChadGuys Plus with Cobblemon is the mod pack. I think we're one version out of date, but basically the latest version as of recording, you know. This factory produces almost 28 different kinds of Pokeballs. There's a few that I'm not crafting from the pack, like the ancient balls and some of the really expensive ones, like it doesn't craft master balls. But I've got a whole bespoke payment system, there's inventory monitoring, there's a whole selection panel. It makes 8 at a time. This is not the machine we're going to be building today. I just wanted to show off a little bit my crazy mayor of Bugtown, crazy machine factory. But the factory we're going to build today is going to be a lot simpler. We're going to build a machine that can make regular Pokeballs, greatballs, and ultraballs. And hopefully if you understand the principles and follow along well enough from those, you'd be able to make something this complicated in the future. So without further ado, testing. I guess let's get into it. Alright, let's just get right into it. First of all, yes, I'm a crab. I was not using the crab model in that other clip because when you have the backpack and all the accessories and everything on, it does not look as good. It's real unfortunate, but I am a crab, so I need to be a crab when I can be a crab. So it's crab time. So without further ado, yeah, let's get into it. I'm not gonna script this part or anything. I'm just gonna try to build this machine with you over the next 30 minutes or so. Hopefully it doesn't take longer than that. I've laid out some parts here to get some principles down. We're not gonna be doing anything crazy with redstone. This is just an example. It's gonna be really simple, and it's still going to be just as functional as that crazy thing I showed off at the beginning. So, we're playing BigChadGuys Plus. BigChadGuys Plus has kind of 2 mods to be aware of for automation. You need Create. You know, if you're not up to date on Create, that's a you problem. You should probably go watch some Create videos because this is not a Create tutorial. But Create, yes, Create. And the other thing that makes it super easy to make really nice machines with this mod pack is Tom Storage. Let's talk about Tom Storage. Tom Storage. It's basically like one of those computer storage system mods, Applied Energistics, or I don't know what else it's been called. There's been lots of iterations on things like it. But essentially you have a main controller block. In this case with Tom Storage, it's the inventory connector. And then you use cables to hook up different storage mediums, and you use a terminal of some kind as an interface. You should get out of my way, sir, please. Thank you. So for Tom Storage, we've got a storage terminal here. This is a little example setup. I've got filtered inventory cable connectors here. So a lot of the times when you're making a create machine, you don't just want items in the system, like you need certain items in certain places, and this Tom Storage makes it very easy to do that. So what I've got here is some filtered inventory cables. I've got 3 of them set up with different color apricorns in them, and essentially these 3 barrels make up the storage network that we can see in here, but the only things that fit in them is apricorns. So if I throw a bunch of apricorns in there, boom, apricorns go in. I can't put this wrench in there. No matter how hard I try, I can't shift click it in, I can't place it in because there's nowhere for it to go because these are all filtered. And if we look in here, you can see that they've gone into their respective barrels. We get exactly what we need, exactly where we want it. Perfect. That's basically the role Tom Storage is going to play. There's a little bit, I guess right here, we can go over that too. There's a couple different ways you can interface Tom Storage with Create. Like if you're trying to get items onto a belt, you can either put them into a barrel and then use, say, a locked hopper that you periodically unlock to deposit items onto that belt, or you can use a excuse me, you can use a basic inventory hopper. I wonder if there's an advanced version of this. there might be better ways to do this. This is just what I've done with my limited knowledge of Tom Storage and my pretty advanced knowledge of Create. I was trying to make this more of a Create machine than a Tom Storage machine. So the two ways I've used Tom Storage to interface with Create is basic inventory hoppers if you want a constant supply of things onto a belt, and locked regular Minecraft hoppers with a filtered storage above them when you need items on command. This does mean they're always one at a time, and there's a reason I'm not using the Create, what are they called, smart chutes. So the clever among you might think, oh, why don't you put a smart chute there, and then you can be like, oh, I want 16 items at a time. And this was my original approach, but there's some kind of bug with the way smart chutes and redstone torches interact. I've had some bugs where when you load and unload the area and such, it can be the smart chutes basically get stuck and they'll never output any items. So instead of smart chutes, I've adapted to just using regular hoppers, and it works perfectly fine. You just have to do one item at a time, so you gotta send it multiple pulses instead of, you know, like 16 items at a time with the fancy Create thingamajig. Alright, so that's basically Tom Storage. Moving on, now we've got, how are we actually going to make Pokeballs with Create, right? That's kind of a big thing here. Let's look at a Pokeball. Let me just do it over here, actually. All of these balls basically have, well, they all have two recipes. There's a shapeless recipe, we don't care about that. We're making it with Create. To make a Pokeball, it's a few steps. We're going to go through it backwards because that's kind of how NEI works. If I want to make a lure ball, I need to take a lure ball lid, apply an iron ball base to it, and then apply an iron nugget to it. How do I make the lure ball lid? You take a red ball lid and you apply cyan to it, cyan dye to it. Red ball lid, you make it by smashing a red apricorn. So if we put those steps back in the right order, apricorn comes in, gets stamped into a ball top. Boom. What the? Hello? There we go. I'm not sure why that didn't work the first time. We get a ball lid. Optionally, a dye is applied. Not all of them need a dye. For example, the Pokeball, just a regular red ball lid, iron ball base, copper nugget. So you get the ball, you make the lid, make a Pokeball, and then you apply a nugget to it. The wrong kind of nugget's in here, so it's not going to work. But the point is, the process is stamp, optionally apply a dye, add the ball bottom, add a metal nugget. There is an issue. If this is an empty hand, say we're trying to make regular Pokeballs, so we don't need a dye applied. If there's no dye there, the ball lid gets stuck. So when we put this process into the machine, if we want to make, we're trying to make three kinds of balls, right? We're trying to make Pokeballs, greatballs, ultraballs. I was favoriting them with the A key over there. The Pokeballs, the sequenced assembly, we just need regular red ball lids. We don't need to apply a dye to it. The greatballs, we do need to apply a dye. And the ultra balls, we also need to apply a dye. Apply a dye. Fun phrase. So, our machine needs the ability to apply a dye, but we also need to be able to disable this section of the machine. So, this is one of my favorite little things to do with Create. If you need something to be in two different states, like you want this thing to, you either need a hand here or you don't need a hand here. The way I'm going to achieve that is with a mechanical sticky piston. And a great way to control, if you have like mechanical pistons or if you're using gantries or anything, if they just have two extremes, they either need to be at one end or the other end, just using a gear shift is perfect. So right now it's trying to retract, but it's all the way retracted. Like you can see it's still spinning. And if you power this, you change the direction of force, it'll fully extend and just sit there fully extended. But you don't need to worry about the redstone beyond that. It's just like, you know, power, unpower. And basically what this is allowing us to do here, actually, I'll just build it on the thing. Here we go. If we put this piece of the machine into place, we now have a way to turn on and off that extra hand. You probably want to pull it back instead of pushing it forward like I just did, but we've moved it out of the way of the belt. So now any red apricorns that came across here, if I had more in there, would not get stopped by this extra hand. Hopefully that all made sense and I didn't just over explain it to hell, but yeah, machine principles. Moving on. Alright, so what else do we need? We need the apricorns, we need the dyes, and we're going to need metal ingots for this machine as different inputs. The dyes are pretty easy to make because apricorns actually smelt into dyes. If I could type apricorn. Okay, we got a red apricorn here. We're going to need, in order to make great balls, you take a blue apricorn, you do process number 1 over there, stamp apricorn into ball top, and then you need to apply a red dye to it. You need a blue ball top and a red dye. Luckily for us, we can just grow red apricorns and create bulk blasting to turn apricorns into dyes. That's a good thing to keep in mind. We're going to use that for the machine. Another thing that's nice, it's really easy to make a create iron farm. This is one right here, complete create iron farm. I mean, I guess you'd have to power it with water wheels or something instead of creative motors, but you know, cobblestone generator goes into mill, turns it into gravel, gravel falls onto belt, gets washed into flint and iron nuggets. This has not really been running all that long, maybe a couple hours, and it's already made a bunch of nuggets. You can then take those nuggets, throw them into a create basin with a stamper, kind of like, you know, the thing the ball smasher is, and turn those into ingots, and that can also be useful because the machine will also need ingots in order to make the ball bottom halves, which I didn't go over. These iron ball bases, create. You just use an iron ingot, goes over saw, turns into iron ball bases. Bunch of them. My sentences are degrading. So those are kind of all the mechanical principles we need. There's more we can do with circuitry, but I don't want to scare you guys off. This stuff is pretty simple when you break it down. And this fancy circuit here is not required at all for the machine we're going to build. It has a lot of nice features, but you know, it's also got a lot of complexity and has a lot higher material cost. We're going to be working for this machine we're building today. We're going to do the easy way, which is basically just repeaters, pulse repeaters, so that you can adjust how long, and if you need to hold a signal on, you can use pulse extenders. But the idea is, we're basically, in order to control this machine, we're going to need some redstone. I guess I didn't explain why we're going to need to control the machine. We're making 3 different kinds of balls, so we're going to need 3 different buttons to tell it which type of balls to make. And yeah, we're gonna build basic circuits for it. I'll probably make another tutorial for something more advanced like this, because it has a lot of features and I'd want to go into more detail and probably actually script it. That could probably be beneficial. I think that's all the parts you need to know. If you're fairly confident with Create and you've understood everything I've explained so far, this next part shouldn't be so bad. Alright, on with the tutorial. Let's get started. I'm just going to try to build this thing. I think I've rambled for about 10-15 minutes now, so hopefully in the next 20 minutes we can have a machine that makes all 3 kinds of Pokeballs. Okay, I'd like to start with the main process here, right? We're going to need mechanical press and a handful of deployers. We're going to need a belt. We're going to need a shaft. I just broke that belt to gain access to the shaft. Inputs and outputs. Yeah, shoots. Alright, let's get started. I'm going to build it over here. Ooh, bugs. Alright, so we need, boom, stamper. We're going to need deployer for a dye color. We're going to need a deployer for the ball base, and we're going to need a deployer for the nuggets. These are going to need materials brought into them, and the materials input to these are going to be different depending on what kind of ball we're making, right? If we're making a great ball, we need red dye in here. If we're making an ultra ball, we need yellow dye in there, I think. Yellow dye. And if we're making a red ball, we actually need this whole thing to retract. This guy is always going to be, what are they called? Iron ball halves, something. Iron ball bases. That's the only thing this guy's ever going to need. So that's easy. This last guy is going to need to be different depending on the different balls. We're going to need gold nuggets for ultra balls, iron nuggets for great balls, and copper nuggets for pokeballs. So this hopper essentially is going to need 3 different inputs. The chute is going to need 3 different inputs. This one's going to need 1 input. This one's going to need 2 different inputs. The 2 different dyes, red and yellow. And this guy doesn't need any inputs except power. We also said a couple times this guy's going to need to retract. That's kind of going to take up some space, so let's get that out of the way too. We're going to need a gear shift. We're going to need, what, the mechanical sticky piston stuff. Let me grab that from over here. Boop, boop. Alright, we're looking at this guy, the iron, no, not that guy, this guy. It's going to need to retract sometimes. We'll do that like this. In the example I showed over there, I put the gear shift on the side, but in order to make this more compact, I think I can do it just like this. Here. Throw the gearbox over there, throw a shaft on it. Connect that all up. Boom. So another trick I like to use, this might be the first trick, I don't know. My script's all over the place. I don't have a script. A trick I like to use when I'm building my create machines, and I usually do build them in creative mode first just because it's a lot easier to prototype. I'll usually throw a creative engine on there somewhere. Get out of here, Buffalant. Let's get back to this. So, I was trying to say, slap a creative motor on there and you can see where all your power lies. I just realized I didn't want this to pop out. I wanted it to retract.
So what I need to do then is actually move this back one. Ugh, I got rid of my gear shift. Okay, I think we're all good. We just need these, bada bing, bada boom, shaft. I don't know, belt, get belt back. Boom. Okay. So now, I don't know why I keep trying stuff on the ground. I don't know how it's working out so well, but it is on the ground.
We have a way to have this piston extended or retracted. So we either need to apply a dye or we don't need to apply a dye, right? Super easy. Basically, if we're going to make regular Pokeballs, since that's the only kind of ball that doesn't need a dye, we'll just need to send a signal to this gear shift that says, you know, retract this deployer until I'm done making balls. This will all make more sense when we get more of the machine together, I think. Let's get power to all these deployers. That would be nice. I'm just gonna throw some shafts in here. I like distributing power with belts with Create. I think it looks neat, and I think it's kind of fun to do. So check it out. Boom, 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 boom. Boom, boom. Boom, boom, boom. So, this mod pack, something to do with the shaders, something to do with texture pack, I don't know what it is. The belts are not animated properly. It makes me sad sometimes. You should be able to see this belt spinning. And like you can see some sections kind of work. This texture's pretty broken still though. So unfortunate, but you can look at the shafts to see what's spinning in what directions. So right now, I'm kind of using this main belt as a main power supply, right? This is going to constantly be running, pushing balls through the machine. Whenever items get onto it, we just kind of want them to go through. So we can take this and use it as a main power. We got power going to this mechanical press. It hits this deployer, it hits this deployer, it hits this deployer, and it's not in the way when this retracts. So we've got a pretty good machine going so far. We're building a machine. We got all the pieces in there. They're all powered. We need to put ingredients in the machine. So let's start with the apricorns. We're going to need 3 different colors of apricorns coming into this machine. It's either going to need to be red, blue, or black. So what I'm going to do right now is set up barrels with hoppers, with torches, and I'm going to start using terracotta because we're going to start kind of having circuits in here. So we got a belt facing into another belt. Let's power this belt. Going the wrong way. Okay. So one thing that's kind of important here that I just did a little switcheroo on without explaining. This belt needs to be going the right way in order to go into this belt, which then goes, you know, this way, right? In order to do that, I need to connect this belt to this belt. I can put a horizontal gearbox here. You can see this one's going this way, and now this one's actually going this way, wrong way. So to reverse it, I could add another gearbox. So I moved it over a little bit so it wouldn't be interacting with this shaft. I put a shaft in there, so now it's coming out here. I can reverse the signal again, and now it's spinning the right way. But an important thing to note about this is that's going to depend on directionality. If I built these 2 belts, if I rotated this whole machine 90 degrees, it might be that now this belt's rotating the wrong way, and I needed that gearbox in this position after all. So keep in mind orientation is important. When I built the whole Pokeball factory, I did not build it the same orientation in the survival world as I did in the creative world, and it ended up needing a little bit of reworking. It is not the same machine that I built in creative. So keep that in mind. Directionality with the create belts can matter. So we were trying to make a way to input different colors of Pokeballs into this belt. And I'm just going to build it up here and show you what I have come up with for managing this kind of thing. Do these get powered? They do get powered, right? I don't know, hard to tell. I have not done too much experimentation with the Tom stuff. I kind of just used it to get items where I wanted it and used create for the rest. And some vanilla redstoning. Hello, fellow crab. Yes, indeed. Just crab things. Sorry, back to business. So, what we have here is hopefully a system for dispensing apricorns of the color we want at the times we want.
Gosh dang it. Okay.
So we've got some apricorns and some barrels. I put some filtered inventory cables on top of them, so only those colored apricorns will get put into those barrels. And now we need... let me demonstrate this with a pulse repeater. Yes, okay, so we want to send an apricorn down this belt and through our system here, one at a time. We need to tell it which kind. This is what we've set up to do here. And every time one of these redstone torches gets a pulse, so it'll turn off for a second, it'll unlock this hopper, and it'll pull out an item. Boom. Blinks off, pulls an item down. The item did not make it to the belt because these kind of have to be primed. You can see there's one in each of these now. But once these hoppers are primed, give it a pulse, drops off a thing. Beautiful. Can make all the different kinds. Easy peasy. So, you might notice this is a little bit slow. And the way I've built this, we can actually very easily just hop over here and throw some cogs in there. Large cog turning a small cog. Boom. This should be twice as fast now. You probably want that on all of these. And it adds a little bit of animation to the build. Ooh, look at that. Look at how nice that's looking. Mmm, tasty. Okay. So, we're most of the way there. All we need to do now is that when we pulse the line for the color of ball we want, we also need to tell it to send the right color of die and the right kind of nugget. So, for the dies, we have two different colors of dies. We're going to do the same setup. We got the belt up there. We just need some hoppers going into it. We need some barrels to store the items. We need some filtered inventory cable connectors to get the right items in there. What items did we want? We wanted dies. A couple of dies. We need yellow dye for the ultraballs. We need red dye for the pokeballs. Right. Before you put the stuff in, you should probably finish building it. So I've got red here to tell it what kind of apricorn. I'm going to use green. And I like using terracotta because I can spell Terra with my left hand when I open the inventory, and I don't have to like move my hands to the keyboard. It's really easy to just throw Terra in there, and then bam, there you go. There's a bunch of colors. Probably also say the same. Well, yeah. See, wool, you gotta like reach all the way across the keyboard. Anyway, I'm going on a tangent here. Let's get back to building. So, I guess I'll just build it on the same kind of side here. And one thing to note is that we don't actually have to use that whole redstone setup right here. We can just make sure we send pulses in when we send signals in. So to send signals into this thing, we're actually going to be using redstone links. I love redstone links. They are basically like, instead of wiring anything anywhere, you just send a signal. And it's quite beautiful. These are all going to need to be receivers, so I'm just going to set them as receivers now with a shift right click. Make sure you're shifting when you right click on it, or you can just right click on it with the wrench. Bada bing, bada boom. I said this wasn't going to be a create tutorial. I've come into some kind of mix of explaining the basics and not explaining the basics. I don't know where this is going to land. Tutorial number 1, I'm just trying to put something on YouTube, and I think my Pokeball factory is pretty damn cool. So, tangents aside, let's get back on track. Where are we at? We got a system for the Pokeballs, or I mean the apricorns, system for the dies. Let's actually set the colors in there. We're going to need red dyes and we're going to need yellow dyes, and I'm going to pre-fill these a little bit. We probably also want to pre-prime these hoppers. make it less confusing to debug later. Okay, so we're gonna need the iron ball bottoms, and then we're gonna need the nuggets. I'm gonna take care of the nuggets first because that's the same thing we've already been doing. We're gonna need hoppers, chests. We'll go with blue now. Red, green, blue. Sounds good. I like RGB. You like RGB? Everybody likes RGB. I'm gonna put this on the outside to leave a little bit more room on the inside for the iron stuff we're gonna do. Wrong placing. Okay, same as before. Do it some more. We got hoppers. They're locked by torches. Those torches can temporarily be turned off by incoming redstone links. And we put inventory filters on them. These are going to need to be nuggets. We're going to need copper nuggets, iron nuggets, and gold nuggets, depending on the kind of Pokeball we want to make. Copper nuggets, iron nuggets, gold nuggets, and I'm going to pre-load the hoppers with a piece too. Okay. If you didn't preload these with a piece, it wouldn't be a huge deal. You just saw earlier how the first time you send a signal, it won't actually give you anything because you gotta preload the hoppers. Okay, so incoming into this place here, we are going to need whatever these things are called. Iron ball bases. The iron ball bases, we looked at it a little bit earlier. It's pretty easy to make. You need a mechanical saw. I'm gonna need some cogs. I'm gonna need a belt. Okay, so it's basically the same as what we had with everything else, right? We got a belt coming in here. Okay, it's not basically the same. We're gonna make these things here. And the way we're gonna do that is with a few cogs and some belts. Okay, so check it out. The mechanical saw is kind of a funny little device. It needs to spin the opposite way as the way that things are coming into it. So we don't want to have to pre-craft these iron ball bases. We want this machine to make them for us. So I'm going to set the filter on this mechanical saw to only make iron ball bases. And if you haven't gotten an iron ball base yet, the way to make it is to just send iron ingots through the saw one at a time with no filter until it gives you an iron ball base. And when I did this in my survival world, it took like 16 different freaking ingots making all these random things before it finally gave me an iron ball base. But once you have at least one, you just set that as the filter, and that'll only give you iron ball bases out of your iron ingots. The saw, turning the opposite way. I got distracted, but the saw needs to turn the opposite way as the belts, which need to turn, you know, like if the belt turns clockwise here to send items through the saw needs to turn the other way. And then the other, you know, you put cogwheels next to saws, and it works. I'm over-explaining it. You'll see it when it spins. You get it. This ain't a beginner create tutorial. It's kind of half a beginner create tutorial. I don't know what's going on anymore. Doesn't matter. This is spinning the right way. Boom. Okay, so sort of just by accident, I think I've powered all the belts. This will spin this way. The saw is spinning the opposite way to do the cutting. Items go further. There is one problem with this setup, though. The people that are familiar with Create might have spotted it. So this is going to make 6 of these at a time. Oops. 6 of these ball bases for every iron ingot. And this will work. So we get an iron ingot. Takes a second to process. We get the ball bases. They go down into this hand. The thing is, if we fill this up and we end up with more than 64 iron ball bases in this hand, 16 of them will fill up in this chute. And if we keep making more, they're just going to start flying off the top. Like if this chute was full, I'll just break it so it acts as if it wasn't here, right? Or if it was full, the pieces are going to come flying off the end. So there's two ways to stop that. I'm going to be lazy and just put a piece of glass at the end here, and that will stop the items from coming off the end. Actually, if we want to make it look a little nicer, use something flat like a trapdoor. Boop. That'll hold the items there. Now you can feed it as much iron as you want, and it'll only make as much as it needs. And it'll just make stuff on demand. So, boom. That's a good way to solve it. Iron. Iron needs to go into this machine. We can do that with a hopper, a barrel, an inventory cable. And this one, we don't actually need to do that whole powered trick thing. We can just give it some iron and let it do its thing, because every ball is going to need one of these same base ingredients, ball bases. Okay, I think that's pretty much the whole machine except for the wiring. Oh, we didn't make a way to automatically make dye. So on my finished machine, it actually makes the dye itself, but you're smart people, you can figure out how to integrate this into your own machine. For now, we've gotten pretty dang far, and this is a pretty dang workable system. Let me grab an inventory connector and what's it called, like a terminal? Yeah, a storage terminal, and some cables. So we're gonna need to wire this machine. We need to wire all of these storage areas together. We need at least one inventory connector. I'll just throw that right here. The one thing you do want to be mindful of with the inventory connector is if you put it next to like a barrel or something, it will connect to that barrel, ignoring the filter. So you want it to just be connected to the cables, your inventory connector. Throw storage terminal on there, you gotta shift right click it on there, and boom, look, you can see the stuff we preloaded into it. You can interact with that stuff. You can put more of those ingredients in, and they'll only go into their correct places because of the filters. I don't need to keep putting stuff in here. You get the idea. Boom, boom, boom. So now items are where they need to be. There you go. There you go. There's a machine. That's the physical part of the machine done. I mean, there's more physical part in the programming, but it's kind of a complicated little machine we've built up here out of some pretty simple principles. So we want to actually craft balls now. Let's set up some wiring. I'll set it up over here. You could set it up behind it. You could set it up on top of it. You could do wherever you want, as long as it's within 256 blocks, really, because these redstone links have quite a bit of range. I believe it's 256. Used to only be 50. But I read a patch note somewhere, and I think we've got the versions updated. I'm going to use red, blue, and yellow terracottas to represent regular great balls, or pokeballs, great balls, and ultraballs, because those are the things we want to make, right? We're going to need some redstone links. We're going to need some pulse repeaters. We're going to need some pulse extenders. Let's start with the Pokeball. Let's get some buttons to activate this stuff. I like the stone button. It's a little bit shorter duration than the wooden button. And what are we going to do here? Well, we only want a quick pulse coming off of each of these. Just a quick pulse. This will take the long pulse from the stone button. I think it's a 1 second pulse, and it will turn it into a 2-tick pulse, which is all we need to turn off that torch just for a brief moment, which allows one item through. That's all we're trying to do. which one items are we trying to let through? Well, we actually are trying to let through 2 items for the Pokeball. We want a red apricorn to come out of here and get stamped. And then we want a copper nugget to come out of here. So we're going to need to actually assign values to these signals. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab the items. And we are just going to say this is nothing and a copper, this is nothing and an iron, this is nothing and a gold. So if you don't know how create redstone links work, I said I wasn't going to do basic tutorial. I'm doing basic tutorial again. Point is, you just want to match the signals to the senders and the receivers. Receivers have little dishes, senders do not. So we press this button, we want 1 copper nugget to come out to make 1 Pokeball. So I'm going to put a sender here that says send out copper nugget on blue as a signal. No dish, so this is a sender. This one has a dish, it's a receiver. When this gets a signal, you saw it there pulse real briefly. I pressed it twice and we have 2 copper nuggets here. So just demonstrate that again. Nothing in the deployer. Let me try to get a good angle on this. I press the button, you see the brief flash up there, and we get 1 copper nugget. Perfect. We also wanted that 1 red apricorn, so let's go.
Let me put these back in the system. Apricorn, apricorn, apricorn.
This is going to be red, blue, black to match the ones up here. We want to send copper nugget signal. We also want to send red signal, red apricorn signal. Boom. Now we press this button. We get a red apricorn on the belt, and we get a copper nugget in the deployer. Perfect. That's all we have to do, right? Well, not quite. We also need... Oh, I had a yellow dye in there and accidentally made the wrong kind of ball. I wonder if it takes a copper nugget. It does not. Okay, so that's sort of a problem. We don't want this dye deployer to be extended. Actually, that didn't really demonstrate the problem because that had a dye in it. The problem is, even if there wasn't a dye in it, and we just tried to use a copper nugget and the red Pokeball, this is the thing I was trying to go on a tangent earlier explaining. It gets stuck here, waiting for an input, which will never come because we don't want an input here. So what we need to do is we need to hold this signal on in the back here. We need to retract this guy. What the heck? Okay, I guess we don't want it retracting while there's already a ball there. But we want that to retract before the ball lid gets there. And that should allow our ball lid to boom, 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 boom. Gets the pieces, makes the thing, makes the Pokeball. Huzzah. So, what we need to do then is to just add another little thing on here with an extender that says, I don't know, maybe 10 seconds? I don't know how long it's going to take. It kind of also depends on how fast we're running the machine, because we could just speed up the input here and the whole thing will run faster. So I'm going to throw, I don't know, 10 seconds as a value on there, and we say we want this thing to be a receiver, and I'll just use a gear shift. Oops. Use a gear shift as the signal. Make this guy a receiver. And keep throwing stuff on the ground because I like having an empty hand. That's why I keep doing that. Boom. We got sender, receiver, gear shift, 10 seconds. So now if I press this button, it sends the pulse, but then it also holds this one on for 10 seconds. So we got the items coming down, and this guy's retracted for long enough. Well, not quite long enough. So we need to up this time. Oops. I guess we'll do 12 seconds. So now if I press this button, it'll retract this for 12 seconds, which should be long enough that Pokeball has time to pass before that comes back out. And boom, boom, boom. We've made a machine that can make Pokeballs. There was an extra copper nugget in there. probably because I had been pressing buttons a lot. So what we should do is clear it all out, make sure it's all good, press this button once, and make sure we get exactly 1 Pokeball. 1 copper nugget in here, as many iron ball bases as we'll ever need. This thing stays retract long enough. Perfect. Okay, for sure we have the regular Pokeballs. Real quick, let's add the other 2. So the other 2 are actually going to be simpler because we don't need zoning out here for a second. We don't need to hold this on. We just need to send a pulse that says, give me the right apricorn, give me the right die, give me the right nugget. What I do need to do though is move this over 1 block, because otherwise if it was right here, right, and I put a signal on the side of this red block getting powered would activate that blue signal. So make sure your signals, your program, I'd call these programs, your little sequences here, make sure those are far enough apart that they're not going to interfere with each other. Oh, we don't need this part. It's a little bit simpler. We just need to send 3 different ingredients after a pulse. Those 3 ingredients we said were, we need a blue apricorn, we need a red dye, which I don't think I set the signals for.
Red dye, yellow dye. I think that's all of our signals even. Should be marked now.
So that's red, and then we need an iron nugget. I'll get the gold one ready too. Need an iron nugget. Boom. Okay, so machine should be in its default state. There are no dyes or anything in here. We press this button, and we should get a great ball. We get a blue ball lid. It gets a red die, bottom ball half, iron nugget, and look at that. Boom. Great ball. Beautiful. Isn't that great? Real quick, Ultra Ball, same exact setup. You just change what signals we need to send. For the Ultra Ball, we have black apricorn. We need a black ball base, or a black apricorn to make a black ball base. Then we need a gold nugget, and we need a yellow dye. So I put the die on the top and the nugget on the side, nugget on top. No, it really doesn't matter. We just need these 3 signals. We get a pulse on each of those 3 signals, and look at that. Gold nugget in there, black ball lid, red die, bada bing, bada boom. Ultra Ball machine. And just like that, we've taken a handful of basic pieces. We basically only used this piece and this piece and half of this thing. And we have a Pokeball factory. It makes regular balls, great balls, and ultra balls. I don't know if I showed it. There's the ultra ball that popped off on the end. It does work. And you can see how this is kind of extendable, right? So if we wanted to make balls that needed other kinds of dyes, you just make this line of barrels longer with the different kinds of dyes you're going to need. You don't want to you don't want to make these dyes manually. Add a piece to the machine that converts apricorns into dye using create bulk blasting technology. This is an encased fan blowing through some lava. Bam. You can make an iron farm. You can make an iron farm that makes iron nuggets and makes iron ingots and supplies both your nugget barrel and your ingot barrel. Like, it's a very extendable machine. It's very easy to set up. Hopefully I've explained all the pieces enough. Kind of just rambling at this point. Do the YouTube things. Like, comment, subscribe. More crab content. Thanks for watching.